What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Homie Hangout, where we help others move in excellence. And Lazy Boy goes to LA. I've seen a lot of videos about it. I've seen more thumbnails than I have videos, and I wasn't going to talk about it at first, but everybody else is, and I think I have a little different perspective maybe than some folks. So, for one, I don't think that there's definitely no flag planting, but also I don't think it's a big deal. That Lazy Boy went to Southern California, and what I mean is this: there's some people saying, "Oh well, he showed some kind of nerve, like that fool got heart for going down to L.A." Right? And then all these assumptions about how he presented himself, and well, I bet he wasn't wearing this, and I bet his people that, and I bet this, and even the idea of hey, probably some stuff was done behind the scenes to make that possible. I don't know if it's just like for social media or what, but you realize there's not like checkpoints when you go into Southern California, right? With a bunch of Southsiders there checking to see who's coming into that half of the state. Uh, I don't think it took heart for him to go down there. I think it was a great move in some respect, and I'll kind of talk about what I think of No Jumper in a minute, which I never really do on this platform. But I'm gonna let you guys know what I think. I I don't think it takes courage to be like myself from Northern California, affiliated, used to be affiliated, not affiliated, whatever, and go to Southern California. Uh, again, I think maybe that's social media or like hype or that's what some people want to believe how things are. Now, if you're gonna go shoot a music video, if you're from Northern California and you're gonna go shoot a video in a neighborhood down south, then yeah, you're going to want to kind of get with the folks from that neighborhood and make sure that people are on the same page. That's just common decency and respect. But that's not what happened here. He went to a podcast. That podcast happens to be in Southern California, right? Where a lot of the entertainment industry and that kind of stuff is. Like LA is LA, you know? If he went to Sway in the morning, it would not be all Lazy Boy plants his flag on the East Coast. It's he went to a podcast, and people from Northern California, Raza from Northern California, affiliated Raza from Northern California, go to Southern California all the time, right? It's whether it's to the tourist attraction places, right? Disneyland or Magic Mountain, whatever, or it's they have family down there and they're going to be with their family, or they have business down there, or they're just going down there. The water is warmer at the beaches down there. The beaches down there are nicer than the beaches in Northern California, right? The water is very cold. And so for 100 different reasons, people go down there. And that doesn't mean they're down there gang banging. That also doesn't mean that they're down there with hoods on, face masks, and covering all their tattoos and walking around like scared little children either. It's just Southern California. It's not where the boogeyman is, and shout out to those that are down there doing their thing, right? I don't promote violence, so it's kind of weird to say shout out to, but no disrespect towards those in Southern California who are affiliated and in that lifestyle. And I'm not trying to suggest that there's not areas that aren't violent and all this other stuff. But he just went to a podcast, bro. Like and did a podcast. Uh I don't think it's a big deal. I've been to Southern California countless times, right? And sometimes just for the day, and sometimes for a week, for 10 days. It varies. And I've been all over Southern California, right? In San Diego and Long Beach and LA and East LA. And I don't go down there gang banging, right? I haven't gang banged since I came home from prison, but um I wear whatever I'm wearing. I don't pick a special outfit, right? Sometimes I'm wearing red because sometimes I wear red in Northern California. I don't wear it every day. I don't wear it all the time. Um, but I just go there for however I am, right? And I feel pretty comfortable moving around anywhere. I've never felt like there's an area I can't move around in. And not because I'm some kind of tough guy or anything else. And I've been, shot at since I've been home. My car hit, my house hit. I've been in melees. Like so, not to say I'm invincible, but I just go anywhere believing that I'm okay there. And I think just because I know how to move and I'm not places trying to cause problems. And in Southern California, I've never had an issue. It's been all respect. It's been great. And sometimes I'm moving with people from Southern California, right? Sometimes I'm moving with affiliated people from Southern California. And sometimes I'm by myself, and sometimes I'm with my family. Like it varies, right? Sometimes I'm down there doing work. Sometimes I'm there just for fun. But I go out to eat, I do my thing, and have never felt uncomfortable. It's a beautiful part of the state. There's lots of cool stuff down there. There's lots of great food. There's plenty of reasons to go to Southern California. And it's not as if there is some wall or some checkpoints that prevents people from up north going down there. The dude went down there for a podcast. He brought a bunch of people with him. He had a bit of an entourage. If you follow him on Instagram and you followed his story and other people's stories, you would see kind of some of the behind the scenes stuff. And no, he didn't go on no jumper flamed up in some red banyo jumpsuit. But if you look at his videos or you look at his social media, Lazy Boy doesn't dress like that anyways. Sometimes he wears red, sometimes he doesn't. Some videos he has flags, some videos he doesn't. Like it, the style, and he's younger, and the style in Northern California, especially around the Bay Area, but it's sort of popping all over the place. It Cats aren't running around with creased up khakis and banos and Pendletons, and that's just not how people dress in Northern California, right? And for the most part, and they haven't for a really long time, for the most part. It got Louis belts and skinny jeans and rips in them and all it. Like it's a different fashion, and so that whole thing of like, well, he careful of what he wore, this and that. I don't know why he made the decisions he made in terms of his wardrobe or whatever else. There were people that were with him that were wearing red. I don't think they were wearing red because they went down there to bang on people. They were just wearing what they were wearing. Okay. It's no jumper. It's not a neighborhood. You're not going to a carne asada in somebody's backyard where there's a bunch of affiliated people. They're going to a podcast that's unaffiliated, right? So I don't think extra props to him for going to Southern California. I do think props to him for going to No Jumper in a way. And what I mean is this: No Jumper is a messy place, right? It's just messy. I don't really watch it. I watch some channels that talk about it, right? Hoodie from the Hood will talk about stuff on No Jumper sometimes. Mudville Media will talk about stuff in No Jumper sometimes. So I watch other channels that will at times talk about things that happen on that platform, but I don't really watch it myself. I don't find it entertaining. I wasn't a big fan of Jerry Springer, and that's kind of what it seems like No Jumper is, right? It's Jerry Springer for people that have had or portray themselves as having some kind of gang ties. And not everybody, there's other folks that don't, but that's what it is. It's like gang culture Jerry Springer. It's just messy. And I'm not really entertained by that personally. I think in that sense, it is a big platform, right? It's going to give you an audience, but it's not the music platform that it was, right? Adam 22 kind of got his start, you know, riding skateboards and jumping BMX bikes over homeless people, but shortly after that, my understanding is it was kind of the underground music scene, right? And he was in the early days of that in terms of podcasts and so kind of getting people exposure for their music, and that's where he developed a real name, I guess, and a real reputation in the hip hop community, right? In the urban community. I don't think that really happens so much anymore. There are people that go on there that have done music, but it's people like G Face, right? Which is, and so it's different for sure. Um, I hope that Lazy Boy gets some traction from it. I don't think he went down there to be messy. Uh, I've had people ask me like, "Hey, do you think he got permission?" I, I don't know the inner workings of how all that went. What I will say is, I don't think that Adam 22 hit his DMs one day and was like, "Hey, come down to No Jumper," and an hour later, he was in a car with his homeboys driving a No Jumper, right? I'm sure there was probably conversations that happened. Um, I don't think that necessarily there was some call from prison that was like, all right, check it out, little homie. Like, you know what I mean? I think we get a little carried away with that stuff sometimes, but um, I'm sure he knows how to conduct himself. I'm sure he knows how to move. Now, he had put up a post. I've seen another channel. I don't remember the name of it. Even if I did, I wouldn't say it because the content was ridiculous. And I don't want to promote that. But there was some other channel who did a post and said, Lazy Boy scared to go to LA or scared to go to No Jumper, something like that. And used a clip of a what's that, like Instagram, not a short, but a live, like a little Instagram live or whatever, his story, where he was like, man, I ain't gonna lie, I was nervous. He was nervous about being on a podcast, and he made that clear, right? Is I was a little nervous about being on the podcast. This isn't what I normally do. But I feel like it went well, right? That's what he said, and it was twisted to make it sound like and cut, chopped and screwed to make it seem like he was saying he was scared to go to LA, which is not what he said. Um, so uh, you don't see a lot of artists. Oh, that's the other thing. This idea that Northerners can't get on camera. Look, because somebody that was active and moving and kind of in the mix do a channel like my channel? Hell no, right? Absolutely not. Um, but you see Northerners on podcasts and stuff, not all the time. And the podcasts that they're on historically aren't really big ones. But I've seen Rico do podcasts, right? Lil TYS did podcasts before he passed, right? Rest in peace to him. So artists have done podcasts. You do have some Northerners that have podcasts. There's the things like No Paperwork or something like that. They don't do a lot of shows. They've only done a couple, but cool conversations, right? So it happens, not often, and you don't get the sensational sound bites from that stuff, you know, because Northerners just they don't talk that way on camera. And I'm not saying because they're better or worse than Southerners. I'm not drawing a comparison in terms of value or what's the right way to do it or the wrong way or who's cooler, who's not cooler. I'm not saying any of that. It's just different. It's a different way of presenting yourself on camera. And there are boundaries on how you conduct yourself. Now, the thing is, when I was in prison, yes, there was the policy, right? If cameras came on a yard, you were not to talk to them. They were not to talk to you. You know, that was a no-go, right? Obviously in San Quentin they let that slide, but in other prisons, right, where they run a little tighter program, you can't do that, right? So the homeboys would go behind the handball wall and bust down and do some push-ups real quick and come out and flex from a distance, right? And even that was kind of like, look, fool, you trying to get on camera? So the thing is, where I was at least, the Southsiders had the same policy. They had the same thing. They couldn't go on camera and talk about their from such and such and whatnot. I don't know their politics in terms of how that plays, kind of system wide, but that's how it used to be for the North. And when it was like that for the North, from what I saw, it was also like that for the South. Uh, just because you're not in prison to be a movie star, like you want to be popular, okay, cool. Well, here's what happens to popular people, right? Since you want a name for yourself, we'll make you famous. Um, and I think they looked at it the same way. So obviously in the streets and in this podcast lane, it appears to be different. I don't know what conversations people have behind the scenes or whatnot. Um, so it doesn't go viral. Northerners don't go viral for podcasts, right? Because they don't talk about when they run a yard, or they don't talk about banging in their hood and this and that. Now in their music, it's a little different. In their music, yeah, some will talk very very reckless, right? And the ops and the other side and this and the that, and that's different. But you won't hear them talk that way or act that way on a podcast. And I don't think that Lazy Boy's gonna talk or act that way, right? So he go down there to put on for Northerners on No Jumper? Yes. Yes. And we know that because again, on his own social media, he posted like, I'm here to kick the door down for, for the homies on the podcast, not gangbanging in Southern California, right? Uh, but No Jumper doesn't really do music anymore. They do messy. And I would hope that Adam doesn't try to twist this. He's talked before about, oh, I don't like this person, so I'm looking for people from this group to ride on this group. He gets very messy. Um, and I think a lot of the stuff on that show is scripted. I also think a lot of it is not, and it's just him being messy. And it's sort of like, if you want to keep getting a check, go with it. If you want to go viral, go with it. Lazy Boy's gone viral before. It's been some years, right? In all honesty, but he's gone viral before, and the memes and all that. He knows that game. But not for stuff he says, it for his tattoo and stuff, right? Like, people had a fun time with the L on his forehead, but he hasn't made a ton of noise in music lately, but he has a real history. If you pay attention to uh Northern California rap and Bay Area rap, Lazy Boy's a name that's been around for a long time, right? And personally, I like his music. I don't listen to a whole lot of new artists. There's a handful though that are from Northern California, that rep Northern California, whose music I really like. Right? I think Rico makes great music. I think Lazy Boy makes great music. I think Lazy Lokes makes great music. Right? Lil D. So there's a few that have been doing music for a while who still do music, and I like their style. That's just my own personal preference. But so he's been doing it. He's not new to this. Some people may be thinking, oh, well, how come it wasn't this artist and how come it wasn't that artist? And I don't know the answers to those questions. But again, Lazy Boy's been in this mix for a while, right? And I know he was rocking with Gold Toes a couple years ago. I don't know if he still is, and if that may have been a way to kind of help open up that door. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's a good look for him. Hopefully, it boosts him in terms of his music. And if it does that, and if it doesn't get messy, and it doesn't become a problem on No Jumper's end, then hopefully that does open the door to more artists from Northern California getting that exposure. Because historically, that's something that doesn't happen, right? Artists from Northern California just don't get traction like that. We don't have big podcasts here. Dregs One from the Bay, right? That podcast is growing. It's dope. I would encourage folks to check it out. If there's anybody in the Bay Area that can do a music podcast, it's him, right? Uh, so there's that, but it's not on the level of No Jumper, right? It's not on the level of other podcasts down south. It can be there. I think it will be there. But even it's very Northern California based, right? Like, really the only folks that watch are probably a lot of people that are from the Bay Area or have roots in the Bay Area. Um, whereas people watch podcasts from Southern California that come from all over. So again, hopefully it helps out his music. I'm sure he conducted himself well, and he's done interviews before. I don't think he's done podcasts, but he's done interviews. He's been on the radio. He's probably one of the first artists out of San Jose, if not the first, to really get radio rotation years ago. So you may not have heard of him recently, but he's been around. He's been doing it. I think he makes good music, personally. But I think it's people are running with it again. I don't know if it's like for the views or if it's just social media or what, but I think in some ways it's being made out to be more than what it really is, right? Not taken away from the kind of pioneering element, right? He is the first, Rasa rapper from Northern California to be on No Jumper, and that's great. Um, See where it goes from there. But in terms of all this north and south and who's traveling where and how folks are getting down and all this other stuff, that just doesn't match with my understanding, at least, of Southern California and how folks move and just reality, right? So, anyways, I look forward to the podcast coming out. I look forward to watching the interview. Again, I really don't watch No Jumper, but I will watch, Lazy Boy's interview, and so maybe in that sense, No Jumper's kind of winning too, right? Anyways, help others move in excellence. That's what homies do. Help yourself at the same time because you're worth it. Help your community because they need you. And stay tuned for the next one, man. Take care.